And we are just a few minutes past the top of the hour now. Let's start with the president's weekend of campaign rallies or super spreader events. Again, saying that we are rounding the corner on the pandemic as he spreads it, as COVID cases are at an all-time high, and as hospitals once again struggle. Here he is in North Carolina on Saturday.
I get calls all the time from leaders. Your testing is the best in the world. I said, do you test? No. I said, you don't test? No. That's why they have no cases, or very few cases. You know the cases they have when somebody's sick, they call it a case. I said to one gentleman who's very tough man, runs a tough country. I said, do you test? Yes. When somebody comes into the hospital and throws up all over the floor, we test. But we never test other than that. I said, so do you have cases? No, we show very few cases. So we show more cases because we test.
The lie continues.
In reality, the U.S. right now is facing one of the most severe surges of coronavirus to date. On Saturday, nearly 84,000 new cases were reported, marking a second day in a row that the country topped 80,000 daily infections. The spike broke the single-day record set on July 16th by about 10,000 cases. Dozens of states have seen a seven-day average of more than 100 new cases per 100,000 people. Hospitals are overwhelmed, with some in crisis, especially in rural areas. Tell that to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows.
I spoke to the vice president last night at midnight, and I can tell you that what he's doing is wearing a mask, socially distancing, and when he goes up to speak, he will take the mask off, put it back on. But he's wearing a mask as it relates to this particular thing because the doctors have advised him to do that. And so, Jake, when we start to look at this, you know, here's where we really need to make sure. On your website yesterday, Jake, your website is talking about, well, now we think the spread is coming from small social groups and family groups. First it was large groups. Now it's small groups.
It's
now
coming from all sorts of places.
Well,
it's
that's
coming from all sorts of places
that's
because
exactly
the pandemic's out of control.
So here's what we have to do. We're not going to control the pandemic. We are going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation
Why aren't we going to get control of the pandemic?
Because it is a contagious virus, just like the flu.
Yeah, but why not make efforts to contain it?
Well, we are making efforts to contain it.
By running all over the country, not wearing a mask?
Jake,
that's what the vice president's doing.
We can get into the back and forth. Let me just say this. Is what we need to do is make sure that we have the proper mitigation factors, whether it's therapies or vaccines or treatments, to make sure that people don't die from this. But to suggest that we're going to actually quarantine all of America, lock down our economy.
No one's saying that.
Well, they are. Joe Biden's saying that. He says lock everybody down. We're going to have a dark winter. We're going to have a dark winter.
That's what health officials say.
I just have to repeat it again this hour, just like I did last hour. Mark Meadows is lying. There are a lot of different ways I could say it, but like Donald Trump lies every day, Mark Meadows is lying. Joe Biden never said he was going to shut down the country. But when Mark Meadows lies through his teeth like that, when he disgraces himself and the White House he's supposed to represent,
for Trump.
What he's doing is he's telling you that he thinks you're too stupid to know the truth. He's telling you that you're too stupid to actually listen to what people say on television. Joe Biden never said that. That's a complete lie. And also a complete lie that they're doing everything they can do to stop the spread. They're not. You have their allies like Ron DeSantis, who is opening the state of Florida up completely and not taking the precautions that need to be taken, that have been pushing back. Held a triumphant press conference back in the spring with Vice President Mike Pence declaring victory. That was his declaration of victory. And guess what? People keep dying in the state of Florida. Senior citizens keep dying in the state of Florida. This has nothing to do with ideology, okay? This has nothing to do with political parties. This is just basic doctor's advice. When you go to your doctor, you listen to him or her, right? When they tell you what you need to do to keep yourself safe or to keep your family safe, you listen to them, right? Well, why the hell would that change because there's an election on November the 3rd? And by the way, guess what? I've had poor people, poor Americans who have had their minds twisted by propaganda come up to me saying, oh, you know, this is going to go away the day after the election. No, it's not. We're not talking about elections. I know that Donald Trump only looks at this world through the lens of what matters to him, what impacts him, what impacts his bank account, and he doesn't care about you. But we do, and we're here to tell you things are going to be tough going into the fall and winter. Not because Joe Biden said it, but because that's what doctors were warning us about in March. It's crazy.
And what's insane
really
about this, you say crazy, what's insane about this, Joe, is that to mitigate this virus, to protect yourself from death, from getting the coronavirus and spreading it to someone who could die, is as simple. It's inconvenient. There's no question it's inconvenient, and we wish we didn't have to do it, and it's hard for kids. But it's masks. It's masks and washing hands. It's not like the president
social distancing
is being. It's not like CDC scientists are asking you to suit up in PPE and to not ever go outside. They're asking you to social distance, wear masks, and wash your hands a lot. And that could be the difference between tens of thousands of deaths. And this president doesn't push that universally.
Yeah. And by the way,
it's like, does he want to kill people? Does he want them to get the virus?
There's a way to do a lot of things safely. There's a way to fly safely. And you can fly safely. You can move around the country safely. You can work safely. But you got to wear a mask. You got to be cautious.
You got to always wash your hands.
You got to socially distance. You got to do the basic things that Dr. Fauci's been telling you to do from day one. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.